It says my broadcast was deleted on Facebook.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
So what does that mean?
I'm not sure. It means that I'm probably just on YouTube. Because Facebook, if you're more than 10 minutes late, they delete you.
Oh, okay. All righty.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't know that you had to register the broadcast to be on.
yeah. Well, when you go through StreamYard, you do. I'm going to end this one. No, I don't want to do that. I'm just going to go on YouTube. That'll be fine. Vern's here. Hey, Verndy. Sorry we're late. My power was out, sweetheart. And now Facebook's not picking me up. Lisa Renee's here. Say Facebook just deleted her. Yeah, Lisa. What it was, our power went off, and so they delete you after 10 minutes. If you're not on, if you're late, they'll delete the actual live stream. So
Wow.
that's why. And our power just came back on. So anyhow, we're here. So that means we just see the ones that are on YouTube today. But I'm glad you guys are tuned in with us. Hey, Norm, we didn't get a chance to speak.
Hey, what's going on, mom and dad?
Oh, she said they alerted her. Okay, cool. Okay, very good. Very good.
Oh,
Wow. Well, I don't even know what we're going to talk about today. You
Go
got
ahead.
anything you got?
Whatever you had in mind.
I didn't. Well, I'm so busy trying to get the power back on. I didn't have anything in mind. What you been up to today, Norm?
just a little bit of housework, chilling, working out. That's about it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, anyway, let me get my book and I'll be ready.
All
Let me get
righty.
my book. Go ahead and say something. Say something.
Well, good afternoon to everyone. So glad to have you guys with us on Impromptu. And we are ready to uh, broaden and expand our minds. Let's start.
Yes, it's true.
I was blessed by a post you put on Facebook that I just read. While I was waiting for you guys to see if it was going to be coming on or not. I just saw your post. Why wait until life gets better to be happy?
Right.
Yes, and so I was truly blessed by that.
Yeah, and I got that from a young lady that was on America's Got Talent not long ago. She had cancer, and she said, and everyone was kind of, saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and all of that. And she said she just decided it wasn't the worst thing in the world. She said, "Why wait until everything gets better before you're going to be happy?"
Exactly,
And
exactly.
so she had the best attitude, and I thought, well, that's worth talking about. That's worth talking about. So
It's been a lot of inspiring, especially this year, of individuals that came on that show. I was inspired by the young lady who is actually deaf, who was
mhm,
who came on to actually was playing
yeah,
guitar and singing, but she's deaf,
Yeah, I think we saw.
and that really blew my mind.
wow,
I think we saw her.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Well,
And so,
there's a new Matrix movie coming out.
oh yes, I'm waiting for it.
And I'm a fan of Matrix
I
because
am my
to
favorite.
me, yeah, because Matrix said so much that is true in its storyline that we are asleep and there are those of us who are waking other people up. And some of us are not really ready for what we will see when we
Mm,
wake up fully, because that's what illusion means. And when we say this is a dream world, we're not saying it's not real, but what we are saying it's not what it appears to be.
exactly,
And
exactly.
so everything when you wake up, everything kind of recontextualizes and becomes more apparent what it is that is actually being presented to you. Because a lot of times we will label things a positive or a negative because we don't have that clarity. And
Mhm.
when we wake up, and I don't say fully because some of us wake up very gradually, kind of like a person who's been asleep and you're trying to arouse them and they don't want to come up out of their sleep. So all of us don't wake up with a spontaneous experience. We long for that
Mhm.
spontaneous experience, that one sudden waking up and all of a sudden I'm there. But then
Mhm.
there's most of us take the gradual path.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And it's funny because even referring back to the movie The Matrix, when he woke up, remember he couldn't handle it.
Right,
He couldn't
right.
handle it. It was a sudden shock to him to the point
Yeah.
that he started hyperventilating and so
Hmm.
forth
Hmm.
and passed out. And so,
Hmm.
like you said, a lot of people, um, when it happens, because I believe we're in that time now. Uh,
Hmm.
some gonna have a negative reaction towards waking up, like in the movie, the gentleman who wanted to go back
Yeah.
um, to sleep, even when he was sitting at the table talking to Mr. Anderson. Um,
Yes.
he was saying he was eating a steak, and he said, I know this steak is not real, and so forth, but even the taste. And some people will resort back going to being asleep. Um,
Hmm.
because they're just not ready for it. They're not able to handle the reality of what is actually real versus the illusion that we have come accustomed to embracing.
Yeah, and I think you said it on Sunday that we've already taken the red pill.
Hmm.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
We've already taken the red pill. So that means that we are awakening, even if it's a gradual process, we are awakening. And there are some areas where we're fully awake and some areas where we're still asleep.
Hmm.
And but at the same time, when we fully awake, that's the beginning of knowing who you are and that you're more than a body and a mind.
Hmm.
And then you begin to live life differently because you realize you're not just a body and a mind. So you come out of simply survival mode
Hmm.
and begin to think along more eternal mode. And then it's an eternal mode in the sense that you realize that, okay, this life has an expiration date in this body, so there is a continuum even when I leave this body.
Hmm.
And I may land in another dimension. And it isn't so much uh, a black and a white absolute. Like most Christians think, well, if when I die, I'm just going to heaven. Bam.
Hmm.
But there are so many gray areas, and specifically talking about people who die with certain beliefs, and when those beliefs will dictate where they land when they come out of their bodies. And then finding out how to allow yourself to become detached or unattached from this physical world. Because I watched his mom when she was going through the process of dying. It was so hard for her to just let go,
Hmm.
holding on to this physical world and holding on to wanting to continue the story in a physical body.
Yeah. Huh.
And so learning to die before we die is where our freedom from suffering comes from.
Hmm. It's funny that you said it because I'm thinking about something I heard Carlton Pearson say while he was ministering on a particular platform, and he mentioned, we often ask people, "How are you doing?"
Hmm.
and so forth, and then he was trying to get them to understand about how we go through the process or accepting dying, because we
Yeah.
all, like you said it, we all have an expiration date. So he was being comical, but he was trying to make a point. He said,
Hmm.
"Well, we should be
Hmm.
asking everybody, well, how you dying?" And
Yes.
I'm dying well. You see what I'm
And there's a scripture that Paul said, I die daily.
saying? Exactly,
Hmm.
exactly,
Hmm.
exactly. and so that is amazing that we understand that, even after this, because we got to remember there's eternal life, and so we spend so much time trying to be successful just in this dimension or this realm.
Yeah.
And you mentioned about surviving, and so I come to realize there's a difference between surviving and thriving, and so
Okay.
forth. And so
What is the difference? Can you
well,
expand on that a little bit?
to me, surviving means I'm just doing whatever I can do to the point of just staying in an area of existing.
Mhm.
I'm not progressing. I'm just here. So, because I'm still yet here, I'm breathing or whatever. I'm surviving, but I'm not going any further in progressing in who I really am. I'm not evolving. And so when I think about thriving, I'm thinking about prospering and growing and developing and so forth. And so that's what decision I had, because I realized for a long time, that's all I've been doing. I just been surviving. I just been existing. I mean, I'm doing things and so forth, as a pastor, whatever. But
Mhm.
I wasn't experiencing the level of fulfillment that I was actually looking for. And so I
Yeah.
realized that, okay, I'm here. I'm just surviving. I'm just doing what everybody expected of me, but
Yeah.
it's not the ultimate thing that's not making me
Yeah.
happy. So in the midst of all this pandemic, I made a decision that I am going to thrive. I am going to prosper. I am going to be fulfilled. And see, people need to understand that when I use the word prosper, I'm not talking about materialistic things. I'm
Mhm.
not talking about
Mhm.
money. I'm talking
Mhm.
about developing and having advantage in different areas of my life. And so I
Mhm.
saw that I was just a driftwood in life.
Yeah.
I was just like
Yeah.
a driftwood on water. And so wherever the currents and wherever the winds were blowing and the waves, I was just drifting. I had to make
Mhm.
a decision to not be a drifter any longer. And so I
Yes.
embraced the change. Yes.
Yeah, when the power went out, when it first goes out, you're like, oh, we got to deal with this. And I thought, oh, we're not going to be able to do the live stream, so we've been kind of busy doing some running errands and things today. So we just went out and got lunch and came back and it was still off. So I said, well, this is a good time for me to go and change the linen on my bed. So I went upstairs and I changed the linen and I sat down and I just sat there for a moment, and then I was able to turn my little laptop on because it still had some battery power, and put a CD in there. And so I was listening to Eckhart Tolle just a little bit, half listening, and I sat there in the chair, and all of a sudden I realized how peaceful and how comfortable I was without having the push of having to meet the time
Exactly.
of the live stream. And I thought, oh, and I wasn't waiting for the power to come on. That dissipated, and I sat there, and there was just this calm that that said to me that we get caught up in a rat race. And so when the power came on, I felt this pull, like, oh, I need to be doing something else. And all of a sudden that sense of calm left, and it made me realize that a lot of our internal suffering is coming from us trying to meet some deadline constantly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That back to what I said. I've been freed from trying to fulfill the expectations of
Mm-hmm.
other
Mm-hmm.
people, um,
Mm-hmm.
and exactly because many, well, some know this that know me very well, but back in the day, I really was considered quote unquote a perfectionist.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, when things wasn't the way that I expected to be,
Mm-hmm.
if the T wasn't crossed, if the I wasn't dotted or whatever, it literally freaked me out.
Man, there's suffering in that. I've
It,
been there. I do
it
that. I
literally
do that
freaked
often. So
me out. And so now I'm at a place right now where, like you said, some things that would literally cause me to really be upset and frustrated and agitated,
mhm,
those things don't really bother me anymore. And so
mhm,
forth. So it is weird because when you're making that change from being who you once were to who you actually evolving to realize who you always been, it's really kind of, I don't like the word scary, but it really kind of make you feel unsettled.
Mm-hmm.
Even today, and I want to be transparent because I really want to help someone. Um, again, I've been sharing concerning this journey that I've been going through in the midst of this pandemic and so forth. And so I've been feeling great. But today, I just felt so out of sort. Just
Really?
literally out of sort. I woke up and I'm like, okay, nothing bad happened, whatever. Why am I feeling so out of sort? I literally had to push myself. Just
Right.
last night, just had an awesome broadcast and so forth. And I'm like, what is going on? And then I realized that that is part of that old man. I call it
Yeah.
the old identity
Yeah.
that won't let go because I felt like it took that what it did that false identity took me back into my past this morning.
Mm-hmm.
And it began
Mm-hmm.
to show me areas in my life saying that I failed at this and I failed at this and I failed at this and so forth. And so when you hear that, those negative emotions come up,
Yeah.
and of course,
Yeah.
you feel like a failure.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, and then when you feel that emotion, it takes all the air out of you, like you was hit unexpectedly, and you had to
Mm-hmm.
breathe, catch
Mm-hmm.
your breath, and it was a shocking thing this morning. And then all of a sudden, I said, "Oh no!" I had to make a decision. I said, "Oh no, not today. I will not feel this way today." Because the truth of the matter is, I have no reason to feel this way.
Right.
And
Right.
so I just decided to make that transition, and I started doing what I know to do, working out, all these different things and stuff. And so it was amazing when I read your post, as you know, I was trying to see if y'all was coming on or not. And I sort of, why wait until life gets better? Be happy.
Yeah.
So again, it took me back to the thought. There's a difference between just being happy and having joy. Happiness
Yes.
is predicated on external factors where joy
Yes.
comes from within. And so
Yes.
I read that blessed me. And I said, oh, wow, this is definitely awesome because I don't have to wait for anything. I don't have to wait for anything to occur. All I have to do is make a decision within
Mm-hmm.
myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be ultimately happy and joyful.
Yes, and the truth of the matter is that a lot of times we have to have someone to remind us. Uh, we get lost in the thought,
Hmm.
lost in the predictions of the mind or the judgment of the mind against us, and I can completely relate to what you're talking about when you say it. He said you were a failure because every time I hear that churches are opening up, I think my mind says to me, "You made a mistake."
Hmm.
You made a mistake when you shut
Hmm.
the building down. You made a mistake when you got rid of all of the stuff and just went virtual. So my mind is constantly telling me that, even when I hear people saying they're getting ready to open up, but they're still having church. And when that happens, I don't fight it anymore because I it comes too often, so I don't give it that much attention. So I just allow it to be. And when it dissipates, I realize why we did what we did, and then I come back to this place of acceptance.
Hmm.
More than joy, I come to a place of acceptance of what is,
Hmm.
and acceptance of what is brings it doesn't always bring you peace, but it brings you a sense of I'm okay.
Exactly.
I'm okay. And so that I think is what a lot of people go through. Um, that when the mind judges and sentences us
Hmm.
and says that we aren't doing enough, and that's what I experienced when I was sitting in the chair when the power was off. The minute the power came back on, the mind to do something more came on with it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And it's funny because that reminds me of something that Bishop has said to me years ago. Matter of fact, I remember exactly what year it was, 2015. We,
I remember that.
because it was during the time that I had the kidney stone. I had to have the surgery,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
I had to be away from the church for a while. And so I remember talking to him one day. It was one Saturday night. I couldn't sleep for nothing in the world. I actually stayed awake until about 6 o'clock, between 6 and 7 o'clock Sunday morning. And that Sunday morning, and I was just thinking about all the things that needed to be done or needed to be said and announced at the church. And
Mm-hmm.
so, of course, my wife, Gwen, she was heading to the church that morning. I think she was actually going to speak, and so I wrote all these things down through that early that morning. Okay, this what needs to be done, X, Y, and Z. And I had shared that with Dad, and he said to me, "You need to quiet down upstairs," which
Mm-hmm.
he's in my mind. And I realized then that I don't. I'm always feeling like I need to be doing something. See,
Mm-hmm.
I'm guilty again with that perfectionist mindset. I feel like when I'm not doing something, I'm failing.
Yeah,
I
it's a need to be productive, and I have
exactly.
that a lot. Now he doesn't have that as much as I do. He's able to let go of doing quite a bit. Uh, but I don't know if, but I think now I could be wrong, but I think he has a lot of mental inertia
Exactly.
as well. So just being still doesn't mean a person doesn't have the mental inertia.
Exactly. That and see that's what I came to realize when we mention about being still, we're thinking in terms of physical, that the
Mm-hmm.
physical body is not being active of doing anything. And I am very guilty that even in the midst of my body being still, eternally, I am
Mhm.
not resting. And I've come to realize that even when I'm sleeping, um, my physical body may be sleeping or
Yeah.
non-active, I'll say that. But
Mhm.
inside of me is so much going on, and I realize that I haven't really entered that place of stillness.
Mhm.
Um,
And I think that what we're waiting for is the mind to go offline completely.
oh, I love the way you said that. Exactly. And so
Mhm.
I am guilty of that. My mind is constantly going. And like I said, when I feel like I'm not being productive, it really does something to me. And so when I
Mhm.
think that's what happened to me this morning, and I couldn't understand because I'm saying to myself, okay, I just was busy doing X, Y, and Z yesterday.
Mhm.
I was working on.
And you know what? I think it came from, and I could be wrong, but it could be because you're looking forward to this weekend coming up. There's a lot of activity that you're planning, and then the weekend following you're planning. So it's like you're having to get in gear again.
Exactly, and it's funny because when you mention about uh your feelings or your emotions towards other churches opening up and so forth and so on. Of course, I share with you guys that we're planning on reopening our
The
sanctuary on the
14th.
14th of November, and it's pretty much a homecoming. And then at the same time, later on that evening, we are planning on having the church anniversary because we'll be actually celebrating 22 years of
Yeah,
existing on the 14th of November.
yeah.
But even with that in my mind has been going consistently with that. But even on last night during the broadcast, I began to target a saying that we say oftentimes in religious or church circles. We always talking about um, going to church or having church, and so I come to
Mhm.
realize we've been conditioned and we know how to do church, but we have to realize that that is not actually what the church is. We don't do church.
Right,
We
right.
are the church, and so forth. We switch the true meaning or the true essence of what that word was is really all about. And so I had to remind them that okay, when we get back to the physical building, I didn't even want to say church. When we get back to the physical building, that'll
Mhm,
be okay.
mhm,
But I
mhm,
realized that just
mhm.
because the doors of the sanctuary were shut, doesn't mean that the church had completely
Right.
stopped.
Right.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying? We didn't
Yeah.
stop evolving. We didn't stop progressing or whatever. And so I said,
Mhm.
what we're actually talking about is our worship or our or the praises and all the other activities that we do when we get to the building. But
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
honest with you, you don't need a building to do all the things
No.
that you decide to do as being quote unquote a
Yeah.
believer. And
Yeah.
so
And
I realized that.
actually, we have, since going virtual, communicated more with the people that were with us, because there are a lot of them that did not show up at the actual physical services, in-person
Exactly.
services, but they tend to come online. And so we see them a lot more here and talk to them a lot more here than we did before.
Hmm. And I think that's one of the things that's keeping me. I'll say that vibrating inside
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
um, is
mm-hmm.
w- I'm looking ahead of what may happen on
Yes.
the 14th when we open up and so forth. My expectations is already out there, but
Mm-hmm.
there's another side of me that's saying don't expect a whole lot.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what
So
I'm saying?
it threw you into that mode of it's a little anxiety and a little expectation as well. So it that's normal. It's normal, but I think that the pandemic was like a selah for us.
Exactly.
It was a pause, and more
Pause
than a
on time.
pause, it was a Sabbath.
Hmm.
And I think you may be reluctant to come out of that Sabbath.
But, but it was funny because I on the broadcast I actually said that. I actually said that for I believe the church and all we all was on a sabbatical, a
Mhm.
literal sabbatical. And for me, I never in the 22 years of pastoring at Bowl Ministries International, I never took a sabbatical. Now I had my vacations, but to
Sure.
take a sabbatical, I
Yes.
never
Yes. Can you
had
get
a
that on?
sabbatical.
Yeah. So
So
the sabbatical is when you completely shut things down, and that's our phone was on. So
Hello?
sorry, you guys. Don't talk on it, honey.
No.
Don't talk on it.
I don't know what it
you
Just
went back in the normal mode after the lights came back on.
look, we are not professional by any means. I tell you that.
I ain't trying to.
No, we're not trying to be. But yeah, the pandemic, I didn't realize how fast paced I felt on the inside, not so much on the outside, but how fast paced I felt on the inside until it shut down. And today when the power went off, I had that same feeling again. I didn't realize how fast paced my insides were until the power went off. And I realized, and I said this to him the other day, there's a whole lot of things that I could be doing that would put us out there more, and we would be more busy than we are now. But I realized we don't really want to be busy. And that's the thing. We don't want to be busy.
Exactly. And so that's I've been dealing with the same thing because I don't want to get myself back into a place of being enslaved by the
Mhm.
thoughts and opinions
The
of
drive.
people. Exactly. And
Mhm.
so like I said, I feel like I've evolved. I feel like I've um pretty much came to a place of maturity. Um
Mhm.
not trying to I'll put it this way, not trying to be a performer, but just be. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And
and I often say it like this: you're not here to impress, but you're here to express.
exactly.
And so
Exactly.
that's and he asked me this morning. He said, "Do we ever get paid, or anybody give anything while we're doing the impromptus?" I said, "No." I said, "But we just enjoy doing them."
Mm,
So it's not about, like you said, it's not about checking off. I'm successful here. I got this amount of money, or I've gotten this amount of notoriety. It's not about that. It's now following your passion, following your heart,
mhm.
uh, and I just simply enjoy interacting with the people when they come online seeing us. and having those interaction, the comments coming, and I just enjoy that part. So it's just a means of being expressive.
Exactly.
Hmm. Now,
Exactly.
are you going to say anything
No, I'm just
today?
listening. Go ahead.
He came on. Look, he was saying, "Come on, let's go on," because I was wondering if we should even try, and now he's going to sit here and not say anything.
I'm
Oh,
just waiting.
he's already expressing himself, but he
He
will
is. He
more.
is. He's
You know,
expressing himself in silence. But look, I was watching. I can't remember what the man's name was. But he was talking about He was talking about self confidence and how people look when they're confident,
mhm.
how they carry themselves. And he gave examples of Colin Powell and Obama and some others. And he was a former FBI agent, I think, and he was talking about something called cadence. He said, when
Yes,
they,
I'm familiar with that in the military.
you know about that.
Yes.
What do you know about cadence?
Well, in the military, we have cadence and so forth, and it's to keep us in step. We do it through songs and it's kind of poetic and so forth. But and basically, it keeps us everyone that's part of that group. It keep us in step with one
Okay.
another. So
He
we're synchronized.
Yes, and what he said was people who are confident, self-confident, they talk in cadence,
Hmm.
meaning, and you do it. My honey bun does it a lot.
Mhm.
When you talk in cadence, and a lot of ministers practice doing it.
I never heard of it.
It's when they say just a little bit, they stop, and then they say something else.
Hmm.
That pause is what they call cadence,
Yep.
because it you say enough to catch their attention, stop, and then when you speak again, they're attentively listening,
Hmm.
waiting for the next thing you're going to say. And that cadence is what you were talking about. You guys practice it in your marching and all because there was a step you had to stay in. So it was a timing. And he said people who are confident, self-confident, have a lot of cadence in their lives and in their speaking. For instance, they'll walk in a room and they'll take their time before they say anything because they're doing it at their own pace.
Hmm.
So it was very interesting when I heard that. I said, that makes sense.
Hmm.
And when and those people, he said also, they are not trying to convince anybody of what they're saying. They're
Mhm.
simply conveying what it is they're wanting to say.
Mhm.
So there's no push. I got to convince you of this.
Hmm. And I think that's good because even when we are being pastors, I
Mhm.
think that's what pretty much kind of um, drain a lot of leaders is because they spend all of their energy trying to
To convince.
convince the people
Yeah.
versus just go ahead and convey and leave
Yes.
it up to them to make
Mhm.
the decision if they're going to accept or reject.
Mhm.
You see what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And I
Mhm.
think that's where because I was having this conversation with someone the other day, and I think I even said it on the broadcast last night that back in the day we were trying to scare people into salvation. You see what
Yeah,
I'm
we
saying?
scared a bunch of them too.
We the message back then was not all the stuff we hear now. The main
Yeah.
message back then was heaven or hell. That was
Yep.
it.
Yep.
And
And
I
a lot of them got saved and came into the church because they were just scared as hell. And
exactly.
then when they realized God wasn't going to bust them with lightning, they went back out and did what they were going to do.
Exactly, because I never forget. I might because I wasn't so much raised up in the church, being from Newark, New Jersey, but pretty much the movie when I moved down here. I think I was 15 years old when they showed at our home church the movie Burning Hell.
Yeah.
And after watching that movie, the whole altar was covered with all the young people and stuff. So we, like you said, we didn't want to go to hell, but as I matured and grew and became more aware, why would I want to be saved? The question that came to me was, oh, so I want to be saved, not to go to hell. Is this what it's all about? I'm doing all this stuff not to go to hell. And I had to come and realize it's not even about hell. It's about the relationship. You see
Yeah,
what I'm saying? The
yeah.
Creator and Father. So
Yeah, and what's so ironic is that we preach about getting saved from hell, come to God who's going to send you to hell. He loves you so much, but he's going to send you to hell. we It was a complete paradox, and it was amazing that people actually fell for that. And we think about it now.
we all did. We all did.
We think about it now, and it's just ironic that anybody accepted it that way, because we realize now a loving father would not send you to hell
Mhm.
and not give you ways to get out of it. Not He wouldn't even send you to hell, first of all, if he was your father.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
So
it's we don't I don't want to criticize them, because I was thinking when you was talking about that, because I even thought about what they did to us once we got to the altar. Um, in that movie, they get behind you and they start clapping your hand and just say Jesus, 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 just say Jesus, 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 Jesus.
yeah,
All
yeah.
when you said it enough and your tongue got tied, then all of a
Yeah.
sudden you supposedly
Speaking
got
in
filled with the Holy
tongues.
Spirit. So,
Yes, yes, yes. They call
yeah,
it tarrying, tarrying.
exactly,
Oh my gosh, we've evolved, so we've come through so many phases. If you look at it that way, I say even uh, dimensions. If you look at it, we came through so many dimensions of belief,
exactly,
and arriving at this place where we are now, beyond belief. Because now I realize that a lot of those beliefs did not serve us
mm-mm,
and don't serve us. So I have come to a point where I don't live by my beliefs. And
exactly,
I'm actually trusting that I know, and my perpetual discoveries. Not what I discovered yesterday, because what I discovered yesterday may not work for me today. So it's a perpetual discovery, a
mm-mm,
perpetual realization of God, of ourselves. It's a constant evolving, a constant
exactly.
evolution. God is not static.
No,
Um, as it's an ever expanding, like we always say, it's an ever expanding awareness.
mm-hmm,
Because God is ever expanding. God is not static. Life cannot be static or stagnant. That's when death takes place.
exactly,
When things stop flowing, that's when death takes place.
exactly,
So even in Christian terms, when we talk about the blood of Jesus, we often think of it as an object. But
mm-hmm,
that blood wash that we talk about in Christianity, that blood washing is a perpetual thing. It's not something that took place one time and it's done. It's
exactly,
it's a every minute, every second blood washed regeneration that's taking place, and it's more so a regenerating of our thinking and our thoughts, and so it's something that takes place all the time. Not happen one time and then it's over. And
mm-hmm,
I think we want something that's going to be right now and over. We don't have to do anything
exactly,
else, you know.
exactly. Yeah, because even on last night, I thought about the process of the caterpillar and how it evolved. And I never thought about this until last night. Like I said, it's funny because when we're on the broadcast and no matter what we prepared or whatever, something new just comes right. A new thought comes
Mhm,
right in the midst of
mhm,
that. And so,
mhm,
as I was sharing on last night, that the thought of the caterpillar, the journey of the caterpillar, came to me, and something I never thought about, even through school or whatever, that the caterpillar itself it instinctively knows the appointed time to come to a place of stillness and
Mhm.
isolation. And
Mhm.
I never thought about that. It Nothing externally is doing anything. It's an instinct within the caterpillar. And then at the same time, the caterpillar, when he knows of that appointed time of that transition to transform, he surrounds himself with a cocoon. It don't come that cocoon don't come from nowhere. It comes from within the caterpillar, the silk or whatever the material. It surrounds itself
Mhm.
and it stays there. And then what's crazy, it liquefies.
Yes, and I wanted to say that what causes it to actually go into that process is that, and I think they're called epithelial cells. They're
Uh-huh.
imaginal cells already housed within the caterpillar. Those imaginal cells have an appointed time when they will begin that process, and the caterpillar doesn't have to consciously think about it. It just that's within them, and those same imaginal cells are inside of us.
Exactly.
And so those processes of metamorphosis take place without us consciously thinking about it. And
Mhm,
then there's it when he's in that cocoon, and like you said, he liquefies,
mhm.
completely liquefies. So the caterpillar never flies,
No,
and the butterfly never crawls.
exactly. I see you must be watching the message on last night.
No, 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 no.
Because that
But
that
that's
that
good.
was the concept of the whole thing. Is he becomes something totally different than before. And
Mhm.
so I think what happens with us, what we don't understand concerning transformation, we're trying to perceive transformation for us dealing with external factors. We're looking at our bodies and so forth and so on. But there's something happening with the real individual, the real identity.
Yeah, now and that's true. I have to say this that the things that we encounter out here externally become the cocoon.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so while nothing out here changes us, the things that take place outside of us become the bubble that I liquefy in.
Exactly.
and and so the metamorphosis takes place within the happenings of those things that are external.
Mhm.
So for instance, I know Laverne, she's going through a whole lot of things with her husband and her mother and all of those things, and then trying to carry a business and do that as well. So she's in that bubble, and
Mhm.
there's an old Laverne that's liquefying,
Exactly. Exactly.
but there's also the imaginal cells taking place that's bringing and emerging a Vern that never existed before,
Mm.
one
Exactly.
that one that now will fly that never crawled. So that's why I asked the question. A mosquito's never seen winter.
Exactly. Never.
So what, depending on our evolution, we are aware of things that someone else who's not at that same point may not ever see.
Exactly. And so that takes us right back to the sacred script that we all have, because when you say appointed, that means that time had to be predestined from the
Mm,
beginning. You
mm,
see what I'm saying?
mm.
When we get to that appointed time, and so when you mention
So
about all the external factors and
yeah,
the things that we go through in life,
yeah,
those things that actually happen to us, and like you were sharing with concerning Laverne, those decisions were made way before
yeah,
way before it was
yeah.
predestined that certain things happen. So at the appointed time, the things in life externally, we begin to form that cocoon around us.
Mhm,
And then that person who was before now is being liquefied, that they will
mhm.
come to another place of evolving to the point that they will go to another level of their
Yes,
awareness and their life.
yes, yes. So all of the externals that are taking place with us over the last couple of years liquefied some of that. I won't say some of that because that doesn't make sense, but it liquefied the old And there's new emerging out of it. And that's happening not just for me and for you, but that's happening for a lot of people, I do believe.
You're becoming a new creature, a
Mm-hmm,
new
mm-hmm,
creation. Totally.
mm-hmm,
Yep.
mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Bishop, you about
There is there's a place that we all will come in awareness where all that we're talking about now will cease in the sense of
Mm-hmm.
you can come on here and look at each other and never say a word. But when the dust is settled, stillness will operate over here like it does when you're out of your body. You don't use your mouth to talk when you're outside of it.
Right.
You only use it when you're in it because it wants to move to verify that something is in it.
Mhm.
When you get through with it, you're just going to lay it down.
Yeah.
We have determined how we're going to leave, and we have determined how we come into the dream.
Yes.
We determine what part of the story in the dream is going to look like is real.
Mm-hmm.
We'll also come to a part in the story where you won't be able to surrender until the contracts come up. So it's not really much you can do except for act the fool like you think you know. That's not you.
Until you wake up and realize you don't
That's
know.
really not you doing. See, that's really not you acting the fool. It's you don't act the fool.
Right.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
You just look at it, act the fool, and just wait till you get to act the fool, and it's like you burn yourself. Say, yeah. And when something happens, we don't say the real self. When something happens, it does not say I told you.
Right.
It does not even ask you to forgive it.
Mm-hmm.
It does not ask you to leave it alone.
Mm-hmm.
It does not ask for you to put things on hold. It does not ask for you to wait to the next day. It does not ask you to wait till you get more money. It does not ask you to wait till you feel better.
Right.
It does not cease to exist because you having a bad day. Nothing is the pure self, the real you, is unchangeable. He plays the game like everything is affecting it, but it's not.
Right. Right.
And so we are in this. We are not in this. We are observing this as though we are in it.
Yes. Yes.
Now, the church is not going to be fully aware of what we're saying. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Now, what we're talking about in these classes will cause you a speedy departure from the body. Because if you are in this advanced stage, like all the things you were listing about a rough day and all that kind of stuff, that rough day does not determine who you are.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We saw a girl at the restaurant today. She said she's having a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
I just looked at her. I do say this. The more you find out about your true identity, the more you're going to have to make fun out of this world. You got to make jokes out of it.
Make light of
because
it. Yeah.
your mind is not going to stop being depressed just because
or anxious
just because you didn't find out
who you are. Exactly.
Exactly.
And you might as well get used to a fool acting up.
and that's what I went through on this morning. Again, like I said, nothing happened, and I felt that word, that statement almost wanting to come out of my mouth, like I'm having a bad day, so to speak. And I fought that thing. I said, I will not say that.
You can say it. You can say it because you can say it now because see, it's what people don't understand. Confessions, good or part of confession, that's a bunch of toilet paper. It really is. Because once you into the status, once you understand that the real you does not operate in belief or faith.
And what you're saying is, I'm going back to what
it operates in facts.
I'm going back to what I heard that FBI agent say. He said, "You remain the statesman."
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And you did it by saying what you
Established
said
state.
to you said that to your mind. I'm not going there. And
Exactly.
so it's remaining the statesman that you are.
Mm-hmm.
Now, remain. Let's talk about that. In the true identity, you don't
I
have to read.
remain.
Re means you originally had it. Renew your prescription means you originally was. So once you wake up to what the original is, a lot of terminology is, well, a lot of things we're saying is going to become a problem in the conditioned self because it'll start to sit and start. I can't say that no more. And then
Yeah.
you'll say, well,
Yeah.
well, hell, what you say? Well, you can't say that no more because I create that too.
Well, it's about allowing it be. And
Well,
just let it be without resisting it, without trying to move it, without trying to remove it. And at the same time, realizing that it is not who you are. That I think that's where the key is, because we get sucked in to those feelings and begin to think that's me.
just go ahead and jump in a cold swimming pool and forget it.
Mhm.
They asked the guy yesterday, said, "You heat the water?" Yeah, but go ahead and jump in it now. Well, it ain't finished cleaning itself. You will never get through cleaning up in
Exactly.
order to be what an image of the ego said it take to become a Christian. Now, my Jeep is dirty. It ain't gonna quit being a Jeep because it needs a wash.
Amen. It's dirty.
And you ain't gonna quit being your eternal self just because the monkey act and show his tail.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing really changes.
My dog over there, she's not walking around trying to be a dog. We are trying to make her understand
We're
like
trying
we
to make
do.
her a human.
She ain't got no time for that. She's busy eating and sleeping and barking and pooping and all that other stuff. She ain't got time to be bothered with being a dog.
So I got a question for you guys. I got a
Okay.
question. Something just occurred to me. Um, Dealing with the development of the mind, and of course, in religious circles, we use the terminology soul. So
Mhm.
now we understand, according to the Genesis story, um, God formed man from the dust of the earth,
Mhm.
and then He breathed Himself. And
Mhm.
notice what happened. It says, and he became a living soul.
Mhm.
So now, what happens? And this is a question. I want to know what your take is on this. Okay, so from the dust of the earth, from earth and spirit colliding together, a soul is developed. The personality, the ability to think and rationale, again, the
Mhm.
monkey mind, the false identity
Mhm.
comes to existence. When we quote unquote separate from this life, and the body goes back to the earth, and then of course the spirit man, what happens to the soul? Is the soul still yet eternal?
Well, let's mess with this a little bit. And I'm not answering your question right away because I know I have to sit with it for a minute. But in our prior learning, we learned that the soul, the psyche, the suke, was the mind, the will, and the emotions.
Mm-hmm.
My dog has that.
Mm-hmm.
My dog has a mind, has a will, and it has emotions. So the soul has to be more than that. Um,
Exactly.
my my own theory, and it's not an absolute. My theory is that the soul is the medium between the physical world and the spiritual world. It is the bridge, so to speak. Now, someone may dispute that. I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I feel it is the bridge of how we touch the spirit world and how we touch this physical, how spirit touches this physical world. And it's like a conduit. Uh,
Exactly.
but it has to be more than the mind, the will, and the emotions because every animal has that.
Exactly. So
And so, and if you look at it that way, every animal has a soul. And if souls need to be saved, and every animal needs to be saved. So it has to be more than that. And now we're just playing with language. So, it's all semantics anyway.
A lot of places soul is used to represent spirit. Interchangeable, depends on
Exactly.
all these souls died. And then you say, well, their spirit left the body. It's like a person having a near-death experience. They say, I saw myself come out of my body, and I was watching myself, and I was seeing myself over the bed and all that. I said, well, who do they think they are?
Who was that saw?
Who that saw? Interchangeably, soul interchangeable back and forth from spirit. You can go through the book and anywhere.
Yeah.
But it's really, I've heard of some people when they had near-death experiences, they come out and they still have a desire for taste and clothing change and all that. Do you know anything about cement? Cement in a bag. Do you know what how to make it work? All right, the cement in the bag has some type of chemicals in it, so that causes it to bond itself when spirit is added to it. Oh, water is added to it. So without the water, it's just a soul laying there with potential and abilities in it. But what we're talking about is the soul finally, or these potentials finally shed themselves off, because the church don't understand, and people don't understand, there's a place beyond heaven. And if you're going to look at it from the standpoint of geographical location, but if you look at heaven as being God, soul don't matter.
Yeah.
I asked this morning or yesterday, I said, okay, I know it was inner self saying it. I said, all right, it seems a little boring right now. I'm ready to move on into this thing. I'm tired of procrastinating with it. I want to find out more and more and more of the truth of who Christ is as me. The deeper you go into this thing, it's some of the most indescribable measures of awareness that we are going to. I'm going to tell you now. Watch this. You're going to end up being, in the final run, you'll end up seeing and aware of being God in the whole universe without an identity.
Yes. Without being a me.
Yeah. So that means the me is a soul that egotistically created itself from us being in it.
When you said about the bag, because you gave the analogy of the bag of cement, I saw, and then the water added to it.
There's a hardener in it too.
I saw what Norman had just mentioned about Genesis, how God formed the clay and then he breathed into it. So he breathed himself into it and activated what was in the bag.
Exactly.
I'm sorry to have to tell you this. When it said, in the beginning, God created, watch this.
Okay.
You created the earth. And God said, and you said, 7, 8, 9, 10 times you said. Ego seem to think that God said something and then somebody else did something else. Well, let's say God played the game of being himself, separated from himself, so he can find out who himself was, so he can find out himself how to talk to himself like he was himself.
And if there was nothing else but God at that point, there was no one else to speak to.
So he talked to himself.
And there was no thing to speak to.
God created a game of coming here when he ain't never left nowhere. See, we talking about ourselves when we're sitting here talking.
We are.
Why don't I challenge each of you right now. The next time you talk to somebody, slow your
roll.
Yes, slow your roll down and you stand there and tell the person standing in front of you that God is standing right there looking at himself in each of us. I do it all the time. I deliberately make myself become aware. I don't care who they are. They don't have to be saved.
And that's called cadence.
I guess.
Yes. And if you notice, he is speaking and using that, he's using that form of communication. and without, it's just a natural for it.
I met a man that's a franchise. Him and his wife was a franchise over 10, 11, or 12 McDonald's.
Mm-hmm.
I asked him, I said, do you go to all of them? He said, no. He said, I got people do that. But I stood there in front of him. He's a weightlifter, bodybuilder, and all that stuff. I stayed in front of his house and I in the garage. And he said, I said, I'm standing over there looking at myself through you back to me. I said, I'm going to take it. He said, okay, I'm listening. I said, I'm talking to God now. And he's looking at himself, talking to himself.
Mm-hmm.
I said, you with me? He said, yeah, I'm just listening. He had never, I asked him, I said, have you ever heard anything like this? He said, no. You know, he's doing fine. Got 2 boys, wife, and all that. He's doing fine. He told me, I said, well, when are you at home? He said, I'm here all the time. And I said, I said, do you go around to any of these buildings and places? And when they reconstructed, I said, just recently they redesigned McDonald's. I said, did you have to go? Well, sometime I do. About 11 of them, he said. 11? I think he said 11.
Mm-hmm.
He got 11 of them. He goes,
And
said,
he's got managers over all of
I
those
said, well, if I
11.
wanted to get a job at McDonald's right now, can you put me on? He said, yeah. I mean, he can put anybody anywhere he want to.
Mm-hmm.
I said, no, I ain't that. I ain't just ain't that. But I said, when can I catch you at home? He said, I'm here in the evening. I said, how you run 11 franchise? And his wife, he said his wife was in there tallying up the numbers for all the McDonald's for the numbers of salaries and everything.
Mm-hmm.
He's at home.
Mm-hmm.
He's riding his golf cart up and down the street. And I really questioned him. And he told me to come back, but he don't know how much. I told him, I said, my life has been the encompassance of meeting entrepreneurs. And in these entrepreneurs, I made a lot of manure. I have always been able to talk to the president of the business.
Yeah, you have. You've always had that access.
I will always talk to the man who actually controls everything.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I have always had an opportunity to go behind the counter by invitation of the managers. And sometimes I like to ask to meet the managers. They don't know that I am them, meeting myself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I am everything in that store that he is sitting out there acting like I don't know nothing.
Why do you think you have that access?
I was going to ask that same question.
Why do you think you had that access? I'm sure it was for more than just to say, I've had it.
It's like I'm asking the question, why did you reveal yourself to me as being me?
Okay.
Why did you reveal yourself to me as everything I do, you're doing it? I ask the question and I get no answer because I am it talking about myself being those positions.
Okay.
I am not hung up on positionalities, but I act like I am, but I ain't. But I like, it's something that I've always liked. I didn't know I liked it. I just did it.
Yeah.
I met the principal of my elementary school in the spirit world in heaven, the gates. I met the owner of Cahill and Swain, the clothing store on the other side. They come to the door come open, and I see them. First thing they want to say to me is forgiveness. I have met all my teachers in the first, all the way through the 6th, 7th, and 12th grade on the other side. When I went in the classroom, with no students in there, just me and them. And the person who was my guide. The person that was my guide was a lady that lived in my neighborhood who is still living now. And she don't forget all about this. She led me through the whole 6, 12, 13 years of it. And she don't even still to this day don't remember it. I saw it.
So you're
But
saying we're that multidimensional.
we are that is what I heard someone said, it's that kind of love, it's this kind of love. It is this kind of, when I want to put somebody in a business, all I do is tell them with the essence that's in them, that's speaking to the essence in me, and the essence in me would say, I'm going to establish you in a business, and walk off and leave it.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the ears of the eternal essence is the whole body. I know that the mouth of the essence is the whole body. I can tell you now, it's knowing.
Exactly.
It's a knowing, but it's not a knowledge that comes from reading.
Right.
It's not a knowledge that comes from study. It's not a knowledge of hearing somebody preach. Because I've been in service, Pastor, I've been in service where the preacher was preaching and God wasn't even listening to him.
At least not in you, wasn't.
I can believe that.
Hey, over here, you push my chair.
And God wasn't even there. God was in the council chamber talking to himself with the chairs around the council table of all the content of the table of contents and Genesis all the way through Revelation. I told somebody that God meets with every religious leader in the universe in the council chamber. They can't understand that. I ain't trying to understand God. All I know is this thing that he's done with me. When I walked into the porch house, Jesus told me when I got there, come on back behind the counter. Mm-hmm. He told me that.
Mm-hmm. So you've always had that access.
I went to a movie theater and the manager of it was standing at the door. And I said, I always wonder, how do y'all do the pictures up there in the projection
That was
room?
Way back in the day.
Yeah, you remember that?
When I remember
and she
that.
said, come on, I'll take you.
They didn't allow people in the projection room.
And I've been up there in the theater, up in the projection room.
Nowadays, everything's digital.
It's just like the projection room in the theater is just like you sitting watching your television. Mm-hmm. Ain't nobody up there controlling nothing. It just got remote. It's computerized. Mm-hmm. A new movie come in. I used to see them come in with the big old round cases of metal with the movie. They put it in the reel. Yeah. They used to have a man sit up there in his t-shirt
because it was hot
and bloomers on because he was so hot up there he couldn't take it in the old theaters. Ain't like that now.
Now everything's through the computer and it's digital.
He come up there, he sits up there in his bloomers and his t-shirt, passing gas, and we don't even know it. And he just doesn't burn up every film up there. When the film used to break, we used to, by the way, hey, I paid my money. Yeah, put my film back there.
Oh my Lord.
You're not.
Oh my gosh. Well, we have been on here an hour already, and I'm so appreciative of you being able to wait on us, Pastor Norman.
Not a problem.
Okay. And again, I want to say, because I'll probably post this on Facebook, but that our power went out, and that's why we didn't come on until late, and we apologize for that.
I want you to come out of your body and turn around and talk to yourself.
Yeah.
Now I'm praying. That's a prayer that I just initiated for God. Yes. God, I'm tired of you being over here. I want you to come out. Let me see myself. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I'm looking at him now on the screen. Hot dog, I just slipped over into it right there.
Yes.
You're gonna have a craving. You and the others that are listening to few, you're gonna have a craving to see God in His true form, and that the desire for that will absolutely overtake you. Yes. Nothing else will matter, and the only thing that satisfies the claim is that experience.
Yes,
exactly.
Car, money, house, wife, sex, marriage, eating. It will not.
None of that will be
consumed by passion of seeing Jesus.
Yeah.
Person.
Yes. So, having said that, with that, we're going to sign off. We're so glad that you guys tuned in with us, Laverne and Lisa. We're so glad, and Pearl, I'm glad you were here with us today, sweetheart. And we will be back on Sunday at 10, and Pastor Norman will be back at 11. Yeah, and we'll be back live and in color.
Live and in color.
Live and in
Thank
color.
you for the gifts and the nuts and fruits and candy.
Yes, yes. We'll see you next time.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.